w- if we were to change our perspective and really hone in on, not that I have an answer for every person, right?
Mhm.
But my perspective is if I hone in more about that, this journey is a step by step. This journey will have elements of very difficult things.
Mhm.
Then maybe I can be more engaged in that moment
Mhm.
because I understand that it is a moment, right?
Yes.
And that if I'm mentally focused on how do I get over there, not only am I missing
Mhm.
the scenery, I'm probably not growing. Would you say that part is true?
I think what's happening is that you're adding undue pressure and frustration for your journey when you do that.
Mm.
And a lot of times, when we have young artists and they want to get the lead and they want to do this and they want to do that. And I'm like, You are exactly where you need to be." And if you are looking back and going, "Oh man, I wish I had worked harder and because if I had, I might have been there," then that's your lesson. And now all you do is you just take that and you move forward. But, don't put this undue pressure. I'm like, "You're exactly where you need to be. Just relax,"
You know,
And I'm like, the goal is never to get the lead, to get this, to get that. The goal is to work hard, to give it your best shot, because in the end, you have nothing to do with the casting. You All you have to do, the only thing that you're responsible for is going out and showing your commitment and your joy for the doing whatever that is that you want to do. But the decision is out of your hands. It's
and
up to us,
and I think
Yeah.
you were
you know?
talking about the destination. Sometimes in that journey, the destination is gonna change for
Oh,
you.
absolutely.
I can remember probably the best motorcycle trip I ever took with my friend Dennis. We were gonna make a big loop around the Great Lakes up through Canada, and we stopped for breakfast in Toledo, and we got to talking. We ended up on the Outer Banks.
How beautiful. Well, I often say, and in my team, as do all my colleagues do too, is that sometimes our art is in overcoming the obstacles. Like we're setting down one path, we think we're gonna do that, and then we get roadblocked. And then we had to have to take a little bit of a detour because we can't get there for what but it's the of overcoming that obstacle that actually gets us where we wanna go.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I know that, some recoil at the idea of changing from the Great Lakes to the Outer Banks. It makes them recoil, and I understand from a brain perspective
Mhm.
why that would happen. But I also think, there's something to be said about understanding, like, when I think about, like, a movie or a book, the ones that really pull you in are the ones that leave you wondering what's gonna happen
Mm.
next.
Mhm.
Whether that's how are they gonna get out of this situation,
Mhm.
or I wonder what they're gonna do about this problem.
Mhm.
But oftentimes we have this tendency in life as we're so hyper focused on safety, security, predictability,
Resolution.
all of that stuff
Mhm.
that we forget and going like, do you see the contradiction there?
Right.
The movies that gross the highest are the ones that pull you in with unexpected turns. It's the Outer Banks, not the Great Lakes. It's
Mhm.
her, not him. Wait a
Mhm.
minute, but I was here for him.
Mhm.
But then we're being told to live a life of,
Yeah.
so the irony is just it just
Well, I
blows my
think that's
mind.
that's that's the that's the whole thing about being a human being, right? Is that conflict.
You're describing
Absolutely.
It is, you
you're
know?
describing a Quentin Tarantino movie.
But you know what's interesting? And I had this conversation with a group of people who are in the consulting business,
Mhm.
and they were talking about, well, maybe we need to change the language and not be so focused on how do we help people solve, how do we help companies solve their problem, their problems and blah, blah, blah. Maybe we need to say that we're this. And I said, when you think about it, and I said, I'm only going to go from a human perspective, my
Mhm.
own experience.
Mhm.
I've always had some kind of problem.
Mhm.
There've always been problems.
Always
Always.
going to be problems.
Constant.
Always.
So this idea that we're gonna come in and solve a problem, it's like, no, maybe it's more
It's like fake advertising,
right,
right?
'cause it is.
Because all I'm gonna do
Right.
is shift it for another. I mean, I say this all the time. I'm like, "Listen, the reality is life is painful.
Yeah.
It's beautiful, but life is painful.
Yep.
The goal is you want to so choose your pain, you know? Like, sometimes you have choices. Each choice is going to have a downside of some sort. But so you just need to do your best to understand what are you willing to do? Like,
Do you think that sometimes that people associate those problems, the pain, the difficulty with their personal value?
I think I think most pain comes from, "I shouldn't have to be dealing with this." They
Yeah.
had this idea that it shouldn't be this way, and
Mhm.
sometimes it
Mm.
shouldn't, but
'Cause there are
because
accidents, there are
absolutely,
yeah, yeah,
absolutely,
yeah,
sometimes you really shouldn't be doing that, but the
yeah,
reality is you are.
yeah,
So if you can shift your mindset into, "Okay, it's okay to say, 'Man, I wish I wasn't dealing with this, but I am,'" then I think that's what makes it more easily navigate easy to navigate, you
yeah,
know?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I remember when my mom suffered from Alzheimer's, and that was just a brutal experience, absolutely brutal. And I remember it was so hard for me once she had declined to see, because this was exactly what she didn't want, and I knew it was exactly what she didn't want, you know, and here she was, relatively young to be dealing with all that.
Mhm.
And I remember just one day, I was sitting with her and I was like, "This is more painful for me because I wish I wasn't dealing with this, but I am dealing with this. So I need to just accept this and enjoy the time that I have with her
Mm.
in whatever state that she has." And that made a huge difference for me. I was able to just sit there with her. She was not responsive, but I was able to sit there with her and just work on stuff, or and then it was okay. I was able to just be with her, you know? And I that was, again, I don't wish that upon anybody, and I wish I hadn't gone through it, but that was a big turning point for me as far as kind of understanding that power of that.